A significant change will take place next year with Honda's global racing efforts. Honda Performance Development, the American arm of Honda Racing, will become Honda Racing Corporation USA and will become directly involved with Honda's global racing efforts, including Formula One. I was invited to take place at a press conference earlier this week, which included David Salters, president of HPD, and Koji Watanabe, president of HRC Japan. A variety of topics were discussed that I think you'll find interesting, including Honda's commitment to IndyCar, a potential Le Mans effort, the importance of video games in racing, and last but certainly not least, whether or not NASCAR could be in Honda's future.
So yes, HRC and HPD, the truth is, up until now, we have been sharing technical know-how with each of the departments, but the global environment for racing has changed. And with that in mind, we need to share more information. Of course, we will split our technical know-how and our engineering expertise throughout the individual divisions where needed, but at the same time, going forward, we'd like to merge to kind of share that technical know-how, share our strategy, and to not only think of the races in the United States, but races globally as well, and that goes behind our decision.
It just made sense, to be really honest with you. So we started to look at how we do our racing, and we thought that just makes sense. So that was the genesis of it, really. It just seemed like a very sensible decision to use the different skills of our different areas and put it together to go forward. And it's Honda. Honda is a racing company, so we should try and perhaps formalize it a little bit more.
As you can usually expect on this channel, IndyCar comes first, and it's an optimistic outlook from Honda.
No, it's business as usual. So we are responsible for North American motorsport. We have been very successful in IndyCar. We are very successful in IndyCar. We've got low carbon fuels, we've got hybrids coming. There's a lot of optimism for the future. As always, we evaluate these things as we move forward, but right now, we're pretty excited about IndyCar. Racing is thrilling. There's some good technology coming through. We're helping with that technology. There's a lot to be optimistic about, I think.
With Chip Ganassi expanding to 5 cars next year, what does that mean for Honda's IndyCar engine supply?
I think our position's pretty clear generally. We're trying to be competitive, we're trying to support the series, we're trying to support the teams. That obviously is a juggling act. And we're trying to balance our budgets as well, which is also a juggling act. So that's something that's being evaluated at the moment. It's pretty much, we have already said we're more or less at the limit of what we can do. Maybe one here and there is certainly, we try to help our teams as best we can, and we try to help the series and all that sort of stuff. But our fundamental reason to be here is to be competitive. So we've got to balance all that up. But we're evaluating that at the moment on where we go.
A huge talking point in sports cars is that HPD's Acura ARX 06 is yet to compete in the 24 Hours of Le Mans or in the World Endurance Championship. The alignment of HPD and HRC makes this more likely, but don't expect it in the immediate future.
We need to look at WEC. We have an amazing, in my humble opinion, we have an amazing ARX 06, which has been the work of our team. Orica have done a stunning job, and our race teams have done a stunning job. So we're smitten with our ARX 06. We love that, and of course it's eligible to go to WEC. But we have always said we need to evaluate what makes sense. It needs to make business sense, marketing sense, brand sense, and very importantly for me, competitive sense. We need to be able to compete. We don't go racing to not compete. It's too hard, to be honest with you. So we constantly evaluate those things. There is a more formal setting to evaluate them now, because we're all looking at global motorsport, but the boundary conditions are still the same. We need to evaluate if that makes sense. And we'll do that and do our due diligence and see what makes sense for our company and our people. We sort of constantly work on that stuff, what makes sense, where do we go in the future. So we're constantly looking at our future strategies. We have no definite timescale at the moment, but we are evaluating it seriously.
And would you rule out a program in 2024? Or is that something that's too soon?
we could rule out a program in 2024. That is too soon. But
Okay.
again, this needs to make sense. Also, you need to be competitive, and so we need to evaluate all those sort of things.
Video games are an incredibly important marketing tool for motorsports in the 21st century. The HRC logos will be added to the ARX-06 in iRacing, so I asked David Salters to expand on the importance of gaming to Honda.
It's crucially important, and I think that's something that between myself and also Watanabe-san, we need to develop that in the future. And we have some amazing racing cars, so we need to think how we make digital twins of them and think how we might make them very, very realistic to have the characteristics and dynamics of our cars. So it's something that we're thinking a lot about, actually. We need to do more of that, to be blunt, and we need to think about our strategies as we go forward. And we have a lot of fans, and that makes it very accessible. So we definitely want to be doing more of that, and understanding. It changes very quickly, and we need to understand it. But how do we contribute to that, and how do we, we have amazing fans of our brand, car culture, racing. So how do we engage and help them and look after our fans? So we're definitely thinking about that a lot.
I also asked about the potential for more crossover between IndyCar and IMSA drivers and teams, and Honda's global racing efforts such as Formula One and Super Formula.
Obviously, as Honda, we race in Super Formula, we race in IndyCar, we race in Formula One, we race in sports cars. So we have different opportunities. I think that's something that we just need to think in the future, what makes sense. Like all these things, what makes business sense, what makes competitive sense, how do we look after our people and our fans. So we need to consider that in the future, how we do that. We have done that up to date, actually. We've had a scholarship where we took people from FRA, they went to Super Formula. We have our FRA scholarship has been won by various nationalities, which have now come through to IndyCar coming through. We're quite excited about. So Honda's invested and interested in that, really. So we need to develop that as we go forwards.
Yep. Yeah, I think David too. Probably one of the best examples is Alex Palou started racing with Honda in Japan, two-time IndyCar champion. But that will be something that we'll explore further. 5 races in Formula One in the North American continent, and our relationship in 2026, beginning in 2026 with Aston Martin Formula One, will be quite interesting. And of course, we've got the ongoing relationship with Red Bull, where Max came out and drove the CRV hybrid racer, and I think it was eye-opening on both sides. I think Max. That was as close to an Indy car as Max had ever driven and may ever drive. Who knows? But it was quite a interesting day, to say the least. And it was a great collaboration between HRC, Red Bull, and HPD.
And finally, it was IMSA's John Oriovitz who asked the question that has been asked so many times and is yet to get a yes. Here's the most recent update on whether or not Honda would ever consider racing in NASCAR.
We constantly look at all series, and we'll do more of that together. Obviously, this is North America. NASCAR is North America, so up to now, the sort of remit has fallen to us to evaluate what makes sense to American Honda inside North America. Because this needs to make sense in terms of what we're trying to achieve, promote, and develop. So our remit has to been evaluate and answer and discuss to American Honda, and we have a race steering committee to do that. And we discuss these things regularly. So NASCAR's doing some quite impressive things, I think. So hats off to them. So we constantly evaluate what the different series are doing, and we have relationships with all of the series really. So we sort of watch and we understand and try and figure out what makes sense. But it's sort of thing where we're just sort of watching and understanding right now, to be straightforward.